What's up, guys? I'm Kyle, also known as the Panda Man Official. And today, I'm going to talk to you about building muscle while fasting. Is it possible? The experts will tell you no, because there's no studies saying it's possible. I'm going to break it all down for you and give you my experience over the past 11 years of fasting and training a lot of people. Let me give you my backstory. I became interested in bodybuilding way back in 1997. I was in high school, going into my junior year, was an athlete, pretty good athlete, which led to the weight room. And the weight room turned into a passion of mine. I became obsessed with bodybuilding, studying all the magazines, figuring out how do these guys get so big. And I went down the rabbit hole of training. It was in the back of one of those bodybuilding magazines that I saw an ad for a book called Big Beyond Belief, written by Leo Costa and Tom Platz. And at the time, you could only do it through a money order. Get a mail or checking. So I gave my mom money. She gave me a check, filled out the form, sent it in. And this training book was like nothing else I had seen. It was about the stress response and how do we actually put on muscle. It was a full body routine based in the Eastern Europeans, the way they were training their athletes. And I like to start there because before I get to the slingshot effect, the slingshot theory that I've come to know in terms of anabolic fasting, you need to understand that the primary stimulus for putting muscle on is your training. It is not what you are eating. That is secondary. And what you are eating and the cadence with which you're eating comes into play when we couple the training with the internal hormonal environment that we've set up, which you can optimize through fasting to pack muscle on. So continuing with the training, Hans Selye modernized the stress response because, and I say modernized, probably way back, hundreds, thousands of years ago, these people knew the stress response. Think of Milos, lifting up the calf, lifting it up every day, progressive overload, getting bigger and stronger as the calf got bigger. Training is a stress that you are applying to your body. Just like you get calluses if you start doing blue collar labor and you're not used to it. There's the alarm phase where your hands and your body and nervous system say, uh-oh, this hurts. I better toughen up and grow something in the form of calluses so I can resist this stress so I don't get blisters. That's the resistance phase. So you have the alarm, resistance, and then exhaustion would be overtraining when you do too much. Not even going to address that here because it's not a concern for 99.9% of people. To continue to signal your body to grow muscle, you need to continue to advance your training. There's upper limits of strength. You can't just keep pushing heavier and heavier weight. There's an upper limit. I don't care if you're the strongest person in the world. There's a limit. So this is when we say, how do I continue to manipulate the variables? What are the variables of training that contribute to muscle growth? And again, I promise you, if you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to tell you how anabolic fasting works and what I recommend, not only in terms of the fasting cadence, but what foods should you be eating? These magical foods. And no, you don't need to be a protein pig. You don't need to be consuming hundreds of grams of protein a day. That is just going to make you bloated, inflamed, and it's actually going to hurt your muscle building capability. The variables with training that we want to focus on. I'll start on the big three as far as gaining muscle. Then I'll go into smaller variables that you can manipulate workout to workout within the workout. You have time under tension. Charles Poliquin taught me that a set should last between 30 and 70 seconds to stimulate muscle growth. Think about that, 30 and 70 seconds. That's a long time compared to most people, how they're training. If you go to the gym or you examine your training routine, I'm guessing the average set will last between 15 and 25 seconds. 30 and 70 seconds is a long time. And it's not an easy way to train. My recommendation would be to set the clock, set the timer, go, start with 30 seconds, then build it up to 40. Don't even count your reps. The reps a lot of times limit you because you're so used to doing a certain amount of reps that even if you have more in the tank and you always got a little more in the tank, you stop when you get to 10, you get to 12, 15. Set the clock and go. There is something called spirit sets that I started in 2020, long sets of barbell squats with weight. The highest I got was 220 on the bar, and I did count the reps one day in an 8-minute set out of curiosity. I got 106 reps. Now, if you told me to get 106 reps with that much weight, I would have said, that's impossible. Can't do it. Setting the clock and just going to a different place in my mind, I did it. Now, when I did those squats all summer long, once a week, the musculature development in my back went to a new level. So you have time under tension. You have volume, your standard sets times reps times weight. You can manipulate that. Do more sets, do more reps, keep trying to bump up weight. More of a traditional bodybuilding approach. And then you have intensity. Drop sets, giant sets, strip sets, rest pause sets, all these things. I'm not talking about the intensity of what you think you're working out at, but doing these type of sets. You look at Mike Mentzer, you look at Dorian Yates. These guys were heavy duty, right? They were doing minimal amounts of max effort sets. And they were champion level bodybuilders. Yates won, I believe, 6 Olympias. So learn from these guys. It was stimulate, don't annihilate. Mentzer advocated for really just training twice a week, which is funny enough. I train twice a week with the weights. I do something every day, but I train with the weights twice a week, and I backload it. That's part of my methodology. When I get away from my longer fasts and early in the week, I get after it Fridays and Saturdays, and I train hard on those days. So you have those variables. Now, again, you're going to say, well, how does this have to do with fasting? I'm going to get to that. You got to stick around to the end. The other variables that you can manipulate. Angles. Change your hand position. Change the grip that you're using, the grip attachment that you're using. Change the speed of the rep. Focus on an eccentric, right? Coming down a little bit slower, 3 to 4 seconds. You can pause at the top, so you have the speed of the movement. What else can you manipulate? We already talked about reps. We can talk about angles. Let's say you're hitting a dumbbell lateral and you're out here. Change the angle. The way that your muscles are innervated, right? Think of a pile of sand, and you keep pouring the water from the same angle over and over. The grooves that are there are just going to get deeper and deeper. Think of that as innervation. You change the angle, start pouring out, you're going to start to form new rivets. You're going to be able to innervate the muscles to a higher degree. So that is key to know. You want to train with these variables in mind. Start tweaking these variables. Speed, angles, exercise selection. Keep it fresh for the nervous system. Remember, you're trying to apply a stress. Your nervous system gets the signal, hey, you better come back bigger and stronger so you can withstand this stress. So if you keep going in the gym, doing the same thing over and over, you're no longer going to grow muscle. Growing muscle is not easy. These variables I just told you about are the reason novices or new trainees can put muscle on pretty much no matter what they do. Anything's going to work at that point. Well, you've been training 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You got to get a little more meticulous with how you train if gaining muscle is your goal. So anabolic fasting. The more insulin sensitive you become, we have a twofold effect on it. This is my slingshot theory. Think you're pulling the slingshot back, you're draining the glycogen, your muscles store glycogen, your liver, right, stores glycogen. You drain the glycogen. You put yourself in a fat loss, fat burning type of state. Insulin sensitivity is going up, and with that, growth hormone is going up when you do this long form fasting. When you feast, if you're doing an OMAD type of protocol, you're going to restock that glycogen. And the insulin sensitivity, especially when you get down to the 10 to 12% body fat range, like Mountain Dog taught me when he was coaching me, John Meadows, may he rest in peace. And he told me, you want to be in the 10 to 12% body fat range, Kyle, before you start trying to put on muscle because you're more insulin sensitive. So the insulin sensitivity is going to enhance what I call the calorie or nutrient partitioning. Kind of being a traffic director of where is this food going? Where are we signaling to go when it comes in? Insulin's very anabolic. When you eat multiple times a day and you have stress, insulin resistance builds up. That anabolic effect of insulin is going to make your fat cells grow. This is not what you want. You're not trying to just put on weight. You're trying to put on muscle. So we enhance that. Now, over time, we're training hard. We're letting the insulin sensitivity build up over the course of a day, of the week. And you go to feast. And when you feast, you feast. You're going to stock up that glycogen. You're going to signal the muscle cells to actually grow when the training stress is proper. And you get leaner and you get more muscular over time. I've seen this in hundreds of people who have gone to my program, clients, myself, too often for this to just be random or a fluke. Totally possible. Now, for those dweebs out there, the fake fitness experts that want to talk about, it's all about calories. But even if you play that silly game of theirs, the way I teach my students and clients to eat, when you feast, you are going to be eating more than you do, especially if you have a big appetite, than if you're eating 4, 5, 6 times a day, trying to control your calories, control your carbs. So you have this big feast. You start with your fruit and honey, because another hormone comes into play that's going to help with keeping us lean. It's going to help ramp up metabolic rate. And it's going to be very protective of the muscle, FGF21, which is stimulated by sugar. That hormone is pretty much shut off by protein. So with protein, too much of that, you're going to shut off this signal. A protein is more anabolic, but it's a terrible energy source, and it disproportionately spikes insulin levels. It's going to cause dysregulation within that realm. Great book on this is Proteinaholic. You want to really dive deep into protein. And it is more anabolic. You don't need to go crazy with it. 60 grams a day should more than cover your needs when you have high levels of good carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are going to allow the protein to do its job. And I believe, based upon my experience, I don't care what anybody else says, when you don't have protein as often, when you do have it, it's more effective at the anabolic effect of it. So you keep your protein moderate to low. If you have the training stimulus right, you can grow muscle with fasting. You got to feast like a king. Don't eat a little diet meal. And this is how you can have the best of both worlds. Fat loss, muscle gain. Fat loss, muscle gain. Back and forth. The slingshot effect. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. I recommend, as far as the fasting protocol, get on my Black Panda protocol, a 48-hour fast followed by 1 meal a day. Make sure you get plenty of sodium within your nutrition. Emphasize good carbs. That's the priority of what you're eating. Try to keep your fat intake lower. You don't need to have all this extra fat in your diet. And really monitor the protein. Don't go crazy with it. It's about the training stimulus. When you set up the internal hormonal environment, you manipulate insulin to be your friend as far as muscle building rather than your enemy when it comes to building fat. You will stack muscle and you'll shred fat. If you have any questions, post them below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful. Thanks, guys.